The first development takes us to the late 1950s with the XB-70 Valkyrie, a plane that could reach Mach 3 at an altitude of 21,000 meters, only to become completely obsolete 2 years after its first flight. During this time, the Soviet Union was building anti-aircraft missiles that could reach an altitude of 20 kilometers, while American B-52s could only fly at 15. The logic was simple. If you cannot fly above the anti-aircraft missiles, you have to fly faster, so fast that the air defense system simply does not have time to react. The requirements for the aircraft were a cruise speed of Mach 3.0 to 3.2, an operational altitude of 21,000 to 23,000 meters, and a range of up to 16,900 kilometers. North American Aviation won the competition in 1957, and that is how the XB-70 Valkyrie was born. 6 General Electric YJ-93 engines were placed side by side in a huge pod under the fuselage. It featured a delta wing with a wingspan of 32 meters, and the wingtips folded down hydraulically by 25 to 65 degrees to improve stability at supersonic speeds. At such speeds, the aircraft literally rode on its own shockwave, a phenomenon called compression lift, which provided additional aerodynamic lift. The fuselage was built from stainless steel and titanium because at Mach 3, the surface heats up to several hundred degrees from air friction, and aluminum would simply melt. In May 1965, a piece of the wingtip about 1 meter long broke off in flight and damaged 5 of the 6 engines. They were sent to the General Electric plant for repairs, while the 6th engine was inspected and put back in place, allowing the plane to keep flying. But by that time, the program was already being shut down. In 1960, a Soviet anti-aircraft missile shot down a U-2 piloted by Gary Powers over Russia, proving that high altitude no longer guaranteed survival. At the same time, intercontinental ballistic missiles entered service, delivering nuclear weapons in minutes without any risk to a crew. In 1961, President Kennedy announced that the XB-70 program was being scaled back to a research initiative. Each aircraft cost approximately $700 million in today's prices, and the total cost to produce the planned 210 aircraft would have exceeded $10 billion. On June 8, 1966, the second prototype collided in midair with an F-114 starfighter during a General Electric publicity photo shoot, killing 2 people. The first prototype continued to fly until 1969, serving purely as a research platform. Flight data from the XB-70 was later used in the development of the B-1 and the American Supersonic Transport Program, and through Soviet espionage, it also aided in the creation of the Tu-144. Today, the only surviving XB-70 stands in the National Museum of the United States Air Force in Dayton, Ohio, as the largest experimental aircraft in the history of the United States. It never bombed an enemy, it never intercepted a target, but everything that flies fast and high today carries the lessons it gathered in the skies over the Mojave. Next, let us talk about ARPANET, a system built by the military to be invulnerable to a nuclear strike that accidentally invented the internet. In 1957, the Soviet Union launched Sputnik, leaving Washington in a panic. President Eisenhower created ARPA, the Advanced Research Projects Agency, to prevent falling behind technologically, focusing on high-risk,
Ключевой
high-tech
задачей было
research
поддержание
that could
связи,
yield military
потому что если
breakthroughs.
ARPANET вела себя как
By the
традиционная
late
телефонная
1960s,
система с коммутацией
ARPA
каналов,
received a specific
выход из
request
строя
from the
одного
Department of
узла мог
Defense.
обрушить всю сеть.
Existing military
Решением стала
communication
пакетная
systems were
коммутация.
centralized,
Пакетная
meaning a single
коммутация
strike on a command
революционная
center
идея.
could destroy the
Сообщение
entire
разбивается
network.
на маленькие пакеты.
They
Каждый
needed a
пакет идет
distributed
независимо
system
от
where
других.
data could
Они
travel
могут
along
идти
different
разными
paths
маршрутами
and
через
reach the
разные узлы.
recipient,
На
even
месте
if some
получения
nodes were
собираются
destroyed.
обратно. Если один
ARPANET
узел
was created
уничтожен,
to
пакеты
provide
идут в
secure
обход.
communication and
29
information
октября
sharing
1969
between
года в
geographically separated
22:30 по
research
Тихоокеанскому времени
The key
из
task
Бойлтер-Холла
was maintaining
3420
because if
в
ARPANET
UCLA
behaved
был
like a
отправлен
traditional
первый
circuit
сигнал
switched telephone
ARPANET.
system, the failure of a single node could bring down the entire network. The solution was packet switching. Packet switching was a revolutionary idea where a message is broken down into small packets, each traveling independently of the others along different routes through various nodes before being reassembled at the destination. If one node is destroyed, the packets simply go around it. On October 29, 1969, at 10:30 p.m. Pacific Time, the first ARPANET signal was sent from Bolter Hall, room 3420 at UCLA. They attempted to transmit the word login, but the system crashed after the letter O, marking the first internet crash in history on the very second character. By 1971, the network was declared operational, and by the late 1970s, it connected military bases, laboratories, and universities across the country. The military built a closed network for military needs, but the researchers using it gradually came up with entirely new applications like email, file transfers, and remote computer access. In 1990, ARPANET was officially shut down, but by then, the civilian internet that grew out of it already existed and lived a life of its own. Today, more than 5 exabytes of data pass through the internet every single day, which is equivalent to transmitting every movie ever made in human history every 2 minutes. A military communication system resilient to a nuclear strike became the planet's primary civilian infrastructure, and nobody had planned it. Third, we look at stealth technology, where a mathematician from the Soviet Union wrote an equation and American engineers figured out how to become invisible. This story does not begin in the United States, nor does it start in a secret laboratory. In 1962, in Moscow, a Soviet physicist named Petr Ufimtsev published a paper titled Method of Edge Waves in the Physical Theory of Diffraction, explaining the mathematics of how electromagnetic waves, including radar signals, reflect off surfaces of various shapes. Soviet censorship allowed the article to be published, deciding it was just abstract mathematics with no practical use. In 1971, it was translated into English as part of the United States Air Force Technical Translation Program. Most readers looked at it and put it aside, but one engineer from Lockheed Skunk Works, Dennis Overholser, understood what was written there. Ufimtsev demonstrated that the shape of an object determines exactly how it reflects radar waves. An aircraft with rounded surfaces reflects the signal in all directions, making it visible to radar. But if you cover the aircraft with flat facets at specific angles, the radar signal will scatter away from the receiver, deflecting the reflection somewhere to the side instead of back to the radar. Overholser wrote a computer program that calculated the radar cross-section of an aircraft with such surfaces and showed the results to the management at Skunk Works. Thus, the Have Blue program was born, serving as the predecessor to the F-117 Nighthawk. The experimental prototype made its first flight in 1977, and the F-117 was adopted into service in 1983, remaining classified until 1988. In the 1991 Persian Gulf War, F-117 aircraft made up just 2.5% of all coalition planes, yet they delivered 40% of the strikes against strategic targets, flying over Baghdad while the rest of the fleet bypassed Iraqi air defenses along other routes. A Soviet physicist wrote the mathematics without thinking about its application, and American engineers read the translation of his paper and changed aviation forever. Ufimtsev later moved to the United States, taught at UCLA, and became one of the most cited scientists in the history of radar technology. Write in the comments, which of the first 3 developments seems the most unexpected to you? The bomber that became a flying laboratory, the military network that accidentally became the internet, or the Soviet mathematics that taught Americans how to hide from radars. The 4th development is the Predator, a drone built in a garage by an immigrant engineer, and for 20 years nobody knew what to do with it. The prototype of the Predator traces back to a garage project by an Israeli immigrant named Abraham Karem, who by 1983 had developed a small, long-endurance tactical reconnaissance drone prototype called Albatross for DARPA. Karem had been the chief designer for the Israeli Air Force before emigrating to the United States in the late 1970s, settling in Los Angeles where he began building drones literally in his garage using his own money. The Albatross was unattractive, with a thin body and huge wings disproportionate to the fuselage, but it could stay in the air for a very long time because endurance, not speed or maneuverability, was exactly what Kerem designed it for. Kerem's company went bankrupt, but DARPA bought 5 units, renamed the project NAT, and awarded Kerem a contract to develop a quieter engine.
Hellfire
The
стал
result of
первым
which
в
was
истории
named Predator.
вооруженным дроном,
In
примененным в
January
реальных боевых
1994,
условиях.
General
После
Atomics
11
received a
сентября
contract for the
2001
further
года
development of the
именно
Predator,
он стал
and its
главным
first flight
инструментом
took place
охоты
on
за
July 3rd,
высокоприоритетными целями
1994,
в Афганистане,
at the El Mirage
Пакистане,
Airfield in the
Йемене,
Mojave Desert.
Ираке. Возвышение
In the spring of
Predator спровоцировало
1995,
массовый
the
рост
Predator was sent to
использования
Albania for
дистанционно
operations
пилотируемых
over the former
авиасистем
Yugoslavia,
Соединенными Штатами
strictly for
и создало
reconnaissance and
беспилотную
surveillance,
гонку
with no guns
вооружений
or
среди
missiles,
других
just
стран,
cameras.
стремившихся получить
Military
аналогичные
officials and intelligence
возможности.
officers watched the video feed from
Иммигрант
the
строил
Predator
дроны в
and
гараже,
saw,
потому что
sometimes in
верил
real
в
time,
идею.
people
Дар подало
suspected
ему
of war
немного
crimes,
денег и
but
много
they could do nothing
скептицизма.
because the drone was
20 лет
unarmed,
никто точно не знал, для чего именно нужна эта
By the
машина.
late
Потом
1990s,
нашлось
a
для
laser
чего.
designator was installed on the
Пятый.
Predator to illuminate
GPS.
targets for other aircraft to
Военные
attack.
строили
And
систему
then they went
наведения для
further.
ракет и
In
через 20 лет
2002,
отдали
the
ее
designation
каждому
was
водителю
officially
на
changed
планете.
to MQ-1,
1973
where
год.
the M
Пентагон
stood for
утверждает
multi-role,
программу
reflecting the
Navstar.
expanding role of the armed aircraft. The Predator, equipped with Hellfire missiles, became the first armed drone in history used in actual combat conditions. After September 11, 2001, it became the primary tool for hunting high-priority targets in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Yemen, and Iraq. The rise of the Predator triggered a massive growth in the use of remotely piloted aircraft systems by the United States and sparked a drone arms race among other countries seeking to acquire similar capabilities. An immigrant built drones in his garage because he believed in the idea, while DARPA gave him a little money and a lot of skepticism. And for 20 years, nobody knew exactly what this machine was needed for until a purpose was finally found. Fifth is GPS, a missile guidance system built by the military that was handed over to every driver on the planet 20 years later. In 1973, the Pentagon approved the Navstar program, standing for Navigation System with Timing and Ranging. The idea was a network of satellites continuously transmitting the precise time and their position in space, allowing any receiver on the ground to calculate its location using signals from 4 satellites simultaneously with an accuracy of a few meters. The task was military and specific. Cruise missiles navigating by terrain matching were decent, but if you knew the exact coordinates of the target and the exact coordinates of the missile at every moment of the flight, you could hit a specific window of a specific building. The first GPS satellite was launched in 1978, and the full system of 24 satellites became operational in 1993. However, back in 1983, an event occurred that changed the fate of GPS forever. A Soviet fighter jet shot down South Korean airliner KAL-007 after it veered off course and entered Soviet airspace, killing 269 people. President Reagan announced that once development was complete, GPS would be opened up for civilian aviation so that airplanes would never drift off course again. In 1991, during the Persian Gulf War, GPS guidance was used on a massive scale, as Tomahawk missiles flew through Baghdad guided by satellites, and pilots found targets at night in the desert with meter-level accuracy. The civilian GPS signal was initially degraded intentionally, with the military introducing random errors of up to 100 meters under a policy called selective availability, because they did not want adversaries using the precise signal to guide their own weapons. In May 2000, President Clinton turned off selective availability permanently, bringing the accuracy for everyone to about 10 meters. The next day, sales of GPS navigators skyrocketed, and by 2010, GPS was built into every smartphone. Today, GPS is used for car navigation, cargo delivery, synchronizing financial transactions, managing power grids, precision agriculture, and mobile network synchronization. A military system designed for missile guidance became the infrastructure powering the global economy. What do they have in common? In each case, the people creating these things did not know exactly what they were making. The XB-70 was meant to be a bomber, ARPANET was supposed to remain a military network, and GPS was intended solely for missiles. Technology rarely goes where it was directed. It arrives where it is pushed by circumstances, accidents, and people who notice something that others missed. Leave a comment. Which of these 6 developments strikes you as the most underrated? And don't forget to subscribe. There are plenty more stories ahead about how the right ideas arrive at the wrong time and find their place later.